Hey everyone, Michael Crump here. Today we are going to disassemble a PlayStation 3 FAT model. So the instructions will be different depending on which model you've got. This one's going to be for the FAT. As you can see right up above, that was the hard drive which I've already taken out. And there is where we need to enter into the console. So I have removed the warranty sticker there. And you'll see you've got to pop out this little tab first. I have a couple sets of tools that I typically use to basically get underneath that tab and to pull it out. And you can just try this with like a flathead screwdriver if you've just got one of those laying around. Inside of that, that is the T8 security screw. So that's a Torque 8 security screw. You can get a toolkit from Amazon and for a couple of different places that has that screwdriver. And in this instance, I actually got mine stuck in there, but that's okay. As long as you are able to unscrew that screw, then you'll be in pretty good shape. Okay, so taking off the cover here, you'll see there is that security screw that was lying in there. So you can just pull that on out. I'll zoom in a little bit here. One other thing is that once you put this back together, I would recommend not putting that Torque 8 screw back in there, but getting another screw. Okay, so first off, let's go ahead and grab this one. This is a small, and you'll see the word or the letter there that just has an S. And so when you pull this open, you'll see, hey, it doesn't look that small, but it actually is compared to the other ones that we've got here. So let's go ahead and take this next screw out, and I should be able to show you what that looks like once you are able to pull that one out. Okay, notice this one's a lot longer than that other one was. So let's now pull it out of this next hole that's indicated here on the screen. And sometimes I just use my little tweezers there in case I need to help get it out of the hole that it's in. All right, we've got a couple more here, so let's now unscrew this one. And there's going to be one right here in the middle. And finally, another one that you're going to need to remove right here. Right now my hand's in the way of it, but you'll see it in just a moment. And there you go. Okay. So now you can go ahead and actually take off this one more screw that I have left here. Okay, so you'll have a total of 6 longer screws and then one of the short screws in total here. And once you have all of those, you can now pop off the case. There's a couple of ways to approach it. Sometimes I may start with the back, like in this instance. And once I kind of got that one going, I was able just to like feed it around and be able to pop it off. Okay, so there's a couple of things to note here. Obviously in the back, in the black, that is a power supply. And then you have your Blu-ray drive in here. What we're going to do first is we're going to disconnect the power from the Blu-ray drive. And you'll see this in just a moment. Keep a note is that sometimes it's small and you will have to lift it up a little bit. And there, I'm going to pause for a second, and there is the cable unplugged. You'll also note over here that the rest of this ribbon cable for the Blu-ray drive is hidden a bit underneath this power supply here. So let's go ahead and remove that power supply. And I'm going to try to, on most of these, be able to come back and show you what exactly it looks like. So there you go. And just pause for a second here, as you can, so you can see that screw. And let's adjust it a little bit here. And so now there's these two screws that's on the side. These are fairly easy to get out, just like most all of them are. Most all of them are. And just one thing to keep in mind also is that we're just using a regular screwdriver from here on out. So we got one out so far, and we have got one more. Okay, excellent. Okay, so over here, there's a number of items that we're going to need to take a quick look at here. And we're going to need to remove this screw that's highlighted. And you may need the kind of like the tweezers to pull it on out. If it is in there, maybe stuck a little bit. And there you go. And make note of these screws and what they look like as you're pulling these out. I know at least for my first time, I was fairly confused. So good thing to go ahead and to keep a mental like note of each one of these. Okay, so we're removing the screw. This one is a lot smaller. Okay, now we need to disconnect the power. So the power is located right here. This one's fairly easy. It's kind of like a tab. You just push down on it and then you pull straight out. So first off, remove this white wire. And okay, great. Looking good so far. And it may take it a second to pop this back out, but as you can see, there is these double pronged that's on the board, and those just go straight into that on the motherboard. Okay, there's a lot of different angles here that you may want to try. The first one, we're trying to remove that ribbon cable. Sometimes I might have tried using like my tweezers or something like that. But I have found most of the time, if you're able to get your fingers in there, you can kind of pull back a little lever and be able to get that ribbon to safely detach. Don't go just like pulling anything or ripping anything out of there. Take your time. You will need to go ahead and remove the CMOS battery very first. Most folks forget to put that back in. So you'll want to make sure that when you take that out, that you put that somewhere that you'll remember to put it back. And then right over here, we have got another plug that we need to undo. And then we have got a screw that we need to remove here. This screw is also very different. It'll be the only one that looks different in the screws that we have. And that's because this one is attached as your ground for your power. And it's that little yellow wire that you can potentially see there. Okay, so next up is going to be the Wi-Fi module. So one screw, you can take that up, and then this piece will lift up. And what you'll have to do is you'll have to navigate through the tape, or if there is some tape that's located on there, to be able to get that back off. We'll go ahead and do that now. On this one, this has been a PS3 that has been opened before and has been given some additional tape to hold it down. You can just remove that. Typically, you'll only get this one white piece of tape on like a brand new model or one that hasn't been opened yet. And so you would just need to make sure that you tape it back down. And as you continue throughout this, you will see that it is attached to the main board. And we will try in just a second to zoom in a little bit. And right there is where that is at. So you can see how small that it is, and it just really pops straight up. So don't get too nervous or anything when you first see that, but there it is. If the camera would stop shaking, that is. Okay, very cool. And while we're already here, let's just go ahead and disconnect this controller to the motherboard. So I just pulled it kind of straight up and was able to get that one out. Just take your time with all of these connections. Okay, so this is where the hard drive lives, and there is 2 screws that's holding this one down. Let's go ahead and remove both of those screws, and then we'll be able to get the cage for the hard drive out. One thing to note is that when I get to it, you will see that we have a number of, or there is a particular way that this is held in place. And you have to kind of approach this by putting it back in with an angle and also taking it out as an angle. As you will see, right there where my finger is pointing towards it, you put this in at a bit of an angle, and then it snaps back down. So hopefully that helps. I know I spent a little bit of time trying to figure that out when I was first running through this. Okay, so now we're working with the controller port. Also, this has the USB connections to it. So there's just 2 screws on this one. I'll keep the highlight on both of them. So we've got this screw here. Again, another short one. Very, very small one, actually. And then we have one more to go. And perfect. So there is the last one. And again, note the size of that one. And now we can take off that shield that's covering that up, covering up the controller port. Okay, so we'll pull that back off. Okay, and now this is not held down by anything anymore. So you can just simply lift up the controller ports as well as the USB ports. Nothing is tied to it anymore. So give it a little jiggle, and there you go. You have it. And as you can tell, there are the USB ports. Looking good so far. Okay, so there's 4 screws here. Some folks in some tutorials, they don't take them all the way out. I've always found it's just best just to take everything out, because if you do, you'll have all of your screws in one area, and that if you kind of leave these halfway attached, there's the possibility that as you're like moving this piece around, they could fall out or they could get lost in some other manner. So I would 100% recommend just going through each one of these and taking these completely off. Okay, we are going to be unscrewing some more things again. So let's start with these two on the side. You will want to make a note here of the location, or at least be able to jump back into this video to remember where they're at. One was at the very top, and then one was at the very bottom. All right, we got four more at the top here. Okay, keep a note of those screws, what they look like. Okay, and we're just going to focus on a few more of these screws for now. And there's one that is hidden right here. You just have to move that ribbon cable back a little bit, then you can find it. And there it is. Okay, well that is pretty much it. So right here, I want you just to pay a little close attention to removing this, because you're going to have to make sure that you feed these ribbon cables back through properly. That way they'll always get caught if you don't. But make sure you get all of those out, and you should be able to pop out that top plate. Okay, now you've got the wonderful motherboard. So I've listed here the capacitors, and I just wanted to note those. Okay, so you have now the ability to pull that motherboard completely out. And when you flip this over, what you will note here is that there is the GPU and the CPU. The GPU is typically the one that needs to be fixed. Now, I found a couple of extra pieces of a thermal paste that was just lying in here. You want to obviously always get rid of all of those. This PS3 is in really good shape because it doesn't have all the dust and all the other stuff that's typically associated with them. And there is the final casing that is on there is the final casing that you can also pull out, which will give you access to the heat sinks as well as the fans. So we'll go ahead and pull that piece on out. And for the fan here, there is 3 screws that's holding this down. I've highlighted them here. In just a second, we will remove those. And besides removing those 3 screws, if you want to go down even another layer, there is maybe I think 4 more screws that you could take out if you wanted to remove the plate that the fan is setting on. So keep that in mind. And now this should pop up, but on this motherboard, one of the things that I noticed is that it has been melted down into the actual plastic. So it gave me a hard time. Normally this should just pull straight up. As you can see here, the plastic has had some damage to it. I think I can repair it by putting a heat gun or putting a hair dryer on that piece and help remold it to work again. But yeah, there I used a little bit of excess force and I pulled that out, and this fan is actually in very good shape. So if I'm not able to get this PS3 to work on this machine, a lot of these parts are in really good shape. And so yeah, that just about does it. Well, if this helps, let me know in the comments below. Thanks. Bye.